Hello guildies, welcome to Musings of a Guild Leader. I am Senda, I am Guild Leader of Intrepid Society, a Horde guild on Doomhammer EU. And in this video blog I'm going to talk about my experiences as a guild leader and all the decisions I have to make in order to run a successful guild, basically. It's going to serve two purposes. One, it is going to inform my guildies of the stuff that's going on in the higher management of their guild, all the stuff that they decide which is in their best interest, and it's a nice mirror for outsiders, so to speak, people from outside of our guild that want to see how other guilds function, either as an example or as something to watch out of pure interest. So, episode number 1, the pilot, to see if this is successful or not. I am going to talk about how we set up this guild and all the stuff that came with it. Stuff that you have to look out for when you maybe one day want to set up your own guild or in the process of having your own guild, and it's going to show some unique insight for our own guildies to see what our history basically is, where we came from. So let's start with that. Our history. Where do we come from? Now, the center of this guild is, you could call it the core of the guild. The original people that set it up is a group of friends, most of whom know each other in real life, as a tight-knit bunch of Dutch people, basically, with some stray hangers-on from different countries that have been playing together for quite a few years on the Doomhammer server in various guilds. They've at some point split up, and then came back together, and then split up again, and went about their various ways, but they always stayed in touch. And it finally culminated into a section of that, well, brotherhood you could call it, I guess, of friends, very, very specific core within that group, being part of a really big social guild, which raided and everything. Now, these people, you could say under the leadership of a raid officer, who was you could call him the top raid officer within that previous guild, because he did all the hard stuff, like the Lich King and ultimately Ruby Sanctum, stuff like that. He had an argument with the higher management. It basically boiled down to regular guildies, you could call them, wanted to join in on the Team X runs, as they were called, because it was the elite of the guild, and it was presented as such. They wanted to be part of that. And you're talking about people that, well, to put it mildly, do not have as much of a clue about this game as the Team X members at the time did. You have to imagine Team X was part of that guild. It was sort of an elite group within the guild. They were hand-picked, selected to run the really hard encounters and get them done, basically. That was the plan anyway. Now, the reason it didn't work was because normal members wanted to be part of it as well. They were turned down on the basis of not being good enough, which is only fair, and then they started to complain about it. They couldn't take the criticism, basically. Now, they went to the higher reaches, so the guild leader at the time, who wasn't online all that often, didn't really have, as far as, because this is my personal view on the things, didn't really have the insight that people would have when they would be online more than she was, and she decided it would be in the best interest of the guild to remove Merilith from his raid leading position. Now, Merilith, a close friend of mine, obviously got quite pissed off about that. He left the guild because his position within the guild was pretty much a moot point at that. That was his sole reason for being there. Basically, the guild leader said, you're not going to have the fun you want to have. A group of friends that you take along are not going to have that fun either, because I'm removing you from the position that allows you to have that fun. And in the process, I'm going to try and satisfy the main body of the guild by, basically telling them he's been removed, so you don't have to worry about feeling that awesome. It's her call, and she has a greater vision of that guild. I'm not going to argue with that, but it did end up with him and the core friends leaving. Now, I myself at the time was doing training raids, which is the complete opposite of what he was doing, but I was also part of Team X. which was an interesting position. I ended up finishing up the training raids that I still had left, and then I transferred my characters over to the new guild that my group of friends then formed. And upon coming there, I found out that the guild leader in question, who was another friend of mine, he put Merilith up as a raid officer, obviously. Didn't really do a whole lot, because he actually turned out he didn't really enjoy it as much. Which is a bad thing, because you should be playing this game to enjoy it. And if you're not enjoying it, you're not logging on, which leads to exactly the same situation that we left the previous guild over. So I sat down with him and I said, look, are you enjoying this? And he basically said, no, I'm not. And then I said, well, then I'm going to take over, because I think I would enjoy it, and I would have a completely different view on things, and I would actually have a plan to make everything work. He was actually pretty relieved at that point, because he was sort of wondering, what the hell am I going to do to fix this? I really don't know. So I took over from him. I sat down and I wrote down the basics of making a functional guild. Now, the very first thing that you do is you make sure you have a vision, a common, greater goal, you could say it, that everyone works towards. In our case, or in my case, as I wrote the vision, is I want a fun and friendly atmosphere where people log in, chat a bit, do whatever they want, be it raiding, PvP, questing, browsing the auction house for that maximum profit. I don't care. Whatever you do that makes you feel good in this game, but you're part of a greater community that does everything and caters to your needs. And that's the important bit. It caters to the needs of the guildies. I, as a guild leader, and my officers are there to provide the fun for others. And doing that basic thing of providing the fun for others, should be what drives us to have fun ourselves. Because otherwise we're in the wrong position. We're not going to have fun. We're not going to log on. It all falls to pieces. So, then I sat down and I thought to myself, okay, what positions does this guild need? Obviously you have to have a leader, which is me. But I am sort of the oversight committee. I look down upon the officers and view their work and think to myself, is this serving the greater good of the guild? Are people happy? Is this proper? Is this the right way to do it? And where needed, I will either steer them into the right direction, or I'll tell them they're doing an awesome job and should keep it up. And then I sat down and thought, okay, which officer positions am I gonna need? There's a few. First of all, we need a raid leader. Now, the group of friends, which is the core of the guild, decided that the high-end raiding is what they like. Getting the hard achievements, for instance, doing the Lich King, stuff like that, is what they enjoy doing. So, catering to their needs, I appointed Merilith as a raid officer. He does everything regarding to raids. He sets them up, invites people, does the whole selection thing, talks to people when they're not good enough, tells them why, everything. And I told him, look, you can be harsh to people. I'm cool with that. And if people have a problem with you being harsh, they come to me. And I'll basically tell them, Vincent is being harsh, not because he's harsh, but because otherwise stuff doesn't get done. And if you can't handle that, then you shouldn't go to his raids. If that means at some later point that I have to set up easier raids with a different raid officer, fine. But you're looking at a situation where we come up to, say, 100 or 150 different members, and then you're talking about a completely different situation, because right now the core of the guild actually enjoys that harsh environment, so to speak, in raids. And I wouldn't call it harsh, I would call it fair. But that's a subject for a completely different podcast. Now the other stuff I have going on is I have someone in charge of PvP, which is a PvP loon, and he's awesome, but he's going to do most of his work in Cataclysm, because right now there's not really guild stuff you can do. There's not rated battlegrounds yet. Then I have someone in charge of the guild bank, which is, funnily enough, the former guild leader, because he is great with managing small things like this. So he sorts the entire guild bank. It's awesome. He does a great job at it. And then I have some other guy in charge of the website, which is a very important medium, and the medium that this video will be on. Now, this brings me to the end of my first episode. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have questions, leave them below in the commentary thread, and next time I might go into more detail. Bye!